Armed forces destroy terrorist hideouts and inflict on them huge losses in several districts. Russia and Iran affirm that the continued support by the West and some Arab and regional states for the armed groups in Syria delays a peaceful solution for the crisis. The special forces in Iraq thwart a terrorist scheme and dismantled 2 Qaeda cells. Good afternoon, this is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. We have received initial information about a terrorist explosion at Aleppo University, resulting in several victims. Here are some highlights. An army unit has meanwhile found a garage which was turned into a workshop for manufacturing armored vehicles to be handed to the armed terrorist groups. Several members of the terrorist group were captured while they were making such a car. A factory for manufacturing explosive devices was also found in the same garage in Al-Ramousa neighborhood. The armed terrorist groups had been chased in several areas in Aleppo and finally resorted to Al-Ramousa area, particularly that garage where the workshop of making armored vehicles and explosive devices was seized. The army also captured members of a terrorist group who had been stealing gas, diesel and other oil derivatives. The authorities have intercepted an armed terrorist group who infiltrated into Sadd al-Rum province in Zahr al-Jabal in Sweida, killing and wounding its members. Among the killed terrorists, the leader of the group, Khaldoun Sami Zainuddin, and Nuruddin Taha al-Sidawi were identified. Several other terrorists were captured and their weapons confiscated, which included machine guns, missiles, automatic rifles, medicines, Israeli medical equipment, sophisticated communication systems, binoculars, stolen cars, plates, and explosive devices of various sizes. Our army forces also seized documents and charts that showed the terrorists' intention to target fuel tanks and gas stations in the governorate, as well as the main bakeries and some government buildings, in addition to other utilities. An army unit today inflicted heavy losses in an armed terrorist group that tried to attack a military checkpoint in Busra al-Harir village in Daraa suburbs. Many of the group's members were killed and wounded, and their weapons and ammunition were destroyed. Another army unit eliminated a number of terrorists who tried to assault the customs building in Dar Atiyah in Damascus suburbs after it had been targeted with a terrorist explosion through a booby-trapped car. In Hama suburbs, our armed forces have established security in Tibat al-Imam after clearing it of the so-called Jabhat al-Nusra and Ahrar al-Sham brigades. The army also found tunnels that were used by the terrorists in their criminal acts. Explosive devices planted by the terrorists in the village and its surrounding were dismantled. An army unit has destroyed in a series of operations a number of terrorist hideouts and killed terrorists in Tal al-Dahab in Homs suburbs. A military source said huge losses were inflicted on the terrorists who were either killed or wounded. Iran called on Western countries to stop their support of armed terrorist groups which wreak havoc on Syria and its stability. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mahmoudparast, at a press conference in Tehran today, stressed that fulfilling the demands of any people has to be achieved through democracy and dialogue. He added that Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi's visit to Iran comes in the framework of developing bilateral relations between the two countries, emphasizing that it is an important visit for the two countries as there are several fields of economic and trade cooperation. The Russian special envoy to the Middle East, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, announced that the tripartite meeting at Geneva between Russia, the USA and UN envoy Al-Akhdar al-Ibrahimi was very positive, and the discussion with the American side was constructive. Bogdanov said in a statement that a meeting will be held by the end of this month by UN permanent members at the Security Council to discuss al-Ibrahimi's report, stressing that Russia fully supports such a meeting. He pointed out that Russia will look closely at the proposals mentioned in the report and its general principles. On his part, former Russian Foreign Minister Yevgeny Brimakov has stressed that the practices that seem to be directed towards democracy in Syria have brought about an opposition in the form of internationally extremist Islamist-linked groups. Brimakov added that the tragedy in Syria reflects a conflict between moderate and extremist trends. He added that the imbalance noticed in the Middle East started with the American invasion of Iraq, when the deadly conflict flared up. What is happening in Syria today is considered one of the latest results of this imbalance, Brimakov pointed out. A report published by the International Rescue Committee revealed that the terrorist armed groups in Syria, who are supported by foreign parties, are repeatedly committing acts of rape against women in the places where they are located. These immoral practices pushed many families to flee abroad. The US-based committee revealed in 3 reports conducted in Lebanon, Jordan and Syria that rape constituted a major factor that caused many Syrian women to escape into neighboring countries. According to the report, many women and girls talked about being exposed to rape in public or in their houses, and many rapes, usually involving more than one rapist, occurred in front of family members. The International Rescue Committee said that in many confirmed attacks, women were kidnapped, raped, and tortured before being killed. The committee reported that many victims who were interviewed expressed fear of being exposed to acts of revenge by the rapists themselves in case they lodge complaints or refer to the perpetrators. Iraqi security forces foiled a terrorist plot to blow up 12 car bombs in central and southern Iraq. Reports issued by a Diwaniyah Governorate and the police of Babel said that accurate intelligence information led to raids on 2 hideouts belonging to Al-Qaeda in the areas of Al-Latifiyeh, south of Baghdad, and Alexandria, north of Babel, arresting 12 terrorists who intended to carry out what they called invasions by blowing up their car bombs in several markets, public places, and government departments. In Diyala province, officials found mass graves for Iraqi citizens who had been kidnapped and killed by Al-Qaeda. Yemeni security forces broke into a terrorist cell affiliated with Al-Qaeda north of the capital Sana'a and arrested 2 members of the cell. The arrest took place inside a folkloric house used by the cell to manufacture explosives and grenades. The security forces also confiscated mines, electric grids, and other tools used for terrorist explosions. The Yemeni security forces chased other groups which were planning to blow up other important buildings and facilities, arresting a number of them. In Egypt, 19 army conscripts were killed and more than 107 others wounded when a train car derailed at Al-Badrshin train station south of Cairo. The source added that the National Railway Board pointed out that the train was carrying soldiers from Asyut city into Cairo when one of the train's cars was dropped on the railway, causing the accident. denying reports about any collision between two trains. It is to be noted that it is the 5th accident of its kind during the last 6 months. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more news about Syria and the region, and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam after a short break.